I'm so glad you said that because I've always thought that, but you're the first person I've talked to in these 2 days who's expressed that. I think that's also very Batman. Is that like everyone, all him and his villains are all so lonely.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
You promised me, Oswald.
I know.
I deserve a better life.
I'm working on it.
Hi, Rincy, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Hi, Deidre, how are
It's
you?
a beautiful world. I like being in your
Thank you.
beautiful world.
You're welcome anytime you want.
Thank you.
Hi, Christine, it's great talking to you. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. I gotta tell you, I was absolutely amazed by your character and your portrayal of Sophia Falcone. I think she's one of my favorite characters in the Batman universe now.
Thank you.
But I think the reason I like her so much was because she has such a complex mind, and her mind can also be very dark and twisted. So
Yeah.
my first question is, how was it for you exploring that darkness and also empathizing with those heavy spots of her?
You know, I had so much wonderful writing. Like what Lauren created is so brilliant. And so there was so much to dive into and so much to help me understand her and justify her actions. And, you know, obviously I'm biased because I play her and I love her, but I like understand why she does everything she does, even though like it's not as, you know, I wouldn't like condone it. But yeah, she's just, I mean, it was such a wonderful thing to explore because there were so many layers of her and you see her at so many different points. So I just found it to be so fulfilling.
I'm great. It's great talking to you because I gotta say, I love the part that Big plays in this story. I think sometimes in mafia shows, it's hard to find characters connected to their humanity. And Big in particular has a long way before him, morally speaking. So could you tell me more about the dilemma that he's going to experience in this series?
Exactly. I think that's a great point that you bring up, that he does deal with that a lot. And I think that he, at his core, is a really good person. And I think it's interesting to see and to ask yourself as an audience, what happens when you're going to put a good person in a tough situation, in a tough circumstance? And at what point does a good person stop becoming a good person? How many bad things does a good person have to do before they're considered bad, or that they feel bad, or what makes someone who's bad, you know? And so I think that's something that he struggles with a lot over the first many episodes, and I think it's something he struggles with internally throughout the entire show, but I think more externally throughout the first three. But yeah, I hope that's something that the audience also asks themselves when they're watching.
I think it's on episode 1 or 2 when Oz visits his mom and she tells him that he's a tough, brave boy. And I couldn't stop thinking that she has actually given her son a very valid and very good advice, but it has anyway pushed us through this messy life with the mafia and crime. That kind sums up parenthood, I think. Parents give you the tools, but you decide what to do with them. So how was it exploring that parenting dynamic in this series?
That's so interesting. Yeah, parents give you all of the tools and then you decide what to do with them. I think she would probably say he took every single piece of advice about 4 steps too far. But I think that there's a way in which the story and what Francis is able to offer him has a lot to do with how do you handle being the person who's being disregarded? How do you handle the person who's invisible, who no one knows your name, who can be driving people around and they even forget that you're there, who's the bookkeeper, like she was, bookkeeper for the mob, you know, the woman who delivers the numbers, but you never look at her twice except that she's cute, you don't know their name. That person, she's offering him how you handle that kind of daily humiliation that he feels about his bum leg, that he feels about his position in the world, that he feels about being disregarded as a man, and turn it into a superpower, turn it into a weapon. Instead, letting your rage get the best of you, you let it boil, you let it fester, you learn everything you can by watching while you're invisible, you build it up. So she's kind of like teaching him how to do that. And I almost feel like the show in general feels very feminine to me, oddly enough, even though it's about a big bull of a man, basically. There's a way in which he's being given a lot of power and a lot of information that women already know about. Women know how to do that. They know how to take a situation where someone is trying to humiliate them and just not be humiliated, keep it to themselves, and use it the next day. And she sort of is teaching him that finesse, always teaching him that finesse. So I feel like she's also like trying to keep him fired up. I think he sometimes loses steam from the amount of rage he feels, from the amount of disregard he feels, and she reminds him, no, you have to hold on, you have to get us out of it.
One of the other things I particularly enjoyed about this show was the relationship your character forges with Oz, which isn't extremely a business relationship, but he isn't like a father either. So how would you describe this mentor-guide-like relationship that they have?
It is an interesting one. It is interesting, and I think that I think it's fascinating because it starts off as one thing and it ends as a very, very different thing. You know, the arc of that relationship, it grows so much over the course of that show, and I think that they grow. I think they grow something towards each other. You know, I mean, maybe it's different for both of them. What Victor grows for Oz and what Oz grows for Victor, but I think it's something deeper than just than something business-like you said. It is deeper than that, and I guess I never think about what grouping should I put it into. It's more about you know, what's the feeling like to each other? How do they feel about each other? And then kind of let whoever's watching, you know, decide for themselves what they think that might be.
As an actor, when jumping into a character that holds such darkness, how do you disconnect from her after shooting? Do you leave her on set, or do you take parts of her with you during the process of filming this series?
You know, you maybe always take a little bit of it home just because, like, that's how a human body works, but I'm pretty good at a balance. You know, like I saw we got to shoot where I live, which was incredible. And so I got to see like my friends on the weekends, and like, you know, I would go see like a play, or I'd go out with my girlfriend. You know, like I had like a good balance, but you definitely bring a little bit of it home, but that's kind of part of it.
Despite this connection, I think that something that every character shares in this show is that they're very lonely in a way. So could you tell me in which way Vic deals with that loneliness throughout the series?
Yeah, I think one of the ways he deals with it is finding Oz and being with Oz and that entire thing. I think you're absolutely right that a lot of these characters do feel lonely, Victor especially, and I think that he has to make a decision whether he kind of wants to continue down this line with Oz or make a different decision. And so I think that maybe the other decision would cure that loneliness, but there's also something else that he wants to cure inside of him. This allure of what the life that Oz has is, and the power that's behind it, and the money that's behind it, and the way that you can sort of your own self-confidence grows in that world, and I think he's hungry for that as well as just hungry for companionship.
I think there is a common denominator between every character in this show, and that is loneliness. Everyone is lonely in their very own way. So what can you tell me about the way Sophia explores that loneliness in this series?
I'm so glad you said that, because I've always thought that, but you're the first one I've talked to in these 2 days who's expressed that. I think that's also very Batman, is that like everyone, all him and his villains are all so lonely, and like so much of what they are, of the havoc that they wreak, sort of is birthed from how lonely they are and how they think that they're always going to be this way. And she's so alone in her experience. She's alone in her family. She's alone in this world. The one person that she had was her brother. And so like so much stems from that, and he's the same way, and that's like they're kindred in that way too, and yet they can't make it work.
I love the way you describe that connection, and I also believe that in order to make these kind of connections believable or heartfelt, actors gotta do their work before being on screen. So how was it developing that relationship between Francis and us with Colin?
I think you're absolutely right. Usually, you have to really like dig in there with someone and talk a lot about your past story. And Colin and I, weirdly blessed, because I think the minute we met each other, when he was in his full prosthetic and he was Oz, and I was in my full regalia as Francis, which took us both a lot of time and work on a lot of people to get us there. Full in our dialects, which had taken a lot of training for both of us to get up and running. Full in our, when we had each fully found our own story and found our own homework, and then you put us together, we instantly had a strange animal rapport with each other. So we were lucky. That's lightning in a bottle. That you can't make that happen. You can't pretend it's happening when it's not happening. You can then go back in when it's not happening and be like, okay, well, we got to do a lot of homework with each other. But we just had this instant understanding of what that relationship was, and why he knew what it was. I don't know. What, maybe everyone says that about him. I don't know, but I felt instantly like I'm safe. I can throw anything at this guy. He can take it. He's safe. He could throw anything at me. I trusted his taste about everything, so I felt like, any danger of us being too theatrical or too bonkers or too melodramatic. We both had a similar like sense of what the container this had to be so that it was very lived in, very true. I just followed him around, kind of followed his truth around. I felt like I was leaning into him. I think he felt like he was leaning into me. So we're just oddly, luckily compatible. But I think each of us on our own had done an enormous amount of homework. We each had a lot of training, and then they put us in the ring.
It's never easy to portray a character that has a speech limitation, but I think you aced it. Did you do any research on how to pull that stutter, on how pushing it to the limit without it being exaggerated?
Oh, 100%. So much of my energy was focused on trying to make that as honest as possible and trying to make that as real as possible and not trying to make a joke out of it or a gimmick out of it, which sometimes has happened before. I think my focus, and I worked with my fluency coordinator coach was Mark Winsky, and he also has a stutter. And so we had about a month before we started shooting to just as much as we can, hours a day, every single day, trying to get this thing, trying to get this stutter to feel natural, to sound natural, to sound in a way that isn't a gimmick, that isn't a joke. You know, we want it to feel honest. And so much of our energy was poured into that, and throughout the course of the show, you know, continually trying to get better and trying to understand it a little bit more so that it can land the right way.
It's been great talking to you, and before I go, I gotta tell you, it's great to see you back on TV. Back in 2017, when Runaway Boys came out, I had a little collection of drawings of every character, so I just stumbled upon this drawing that I just dropped from my notebook. From a long time ago.
You
So
sketched this?
yeah, I did back in the day.
That is gorgeous. Wow, that's beautiful.
It's great talking to you, and congratulations on the show. It's amazing.
Thank you so much, Fred. I appreciate that.
Thank you for talking to me today, and congratulations on the show. I'm loving it.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to meet you.
And so thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of it.
Trust me. It's just the beginning.